Good afternoon and welcome to BizTech's Property Show, the show where property markets regionally and globally are featured, and we give you insights to help you manage your existing properties, get better returns, and also help you to make better decisions about your future purchases. Now, our focus today is the Singapore property market and what potentially we should be looking out for this year. Now, to enlighten us today is our guest, Rhonda Wong, the co-founder and chief executive officer of property technology firm OHmyhome. Rhonda, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brian. Hello, everyone. I'm Rhonda from OHmyhome.
Now, Rhonda, before we get your insights into the Singapore property market, just give us an overview of what OHmyhome does.
Well, OHmyhome is a one-stop shop transaction platform for property. What this means is that unlike all the listing platforms that's all about advertising, at OHmyhome, we take care of your sale of your property, the purchase of your property. And at this moment, for the past 3 years, we have been the fastest transaction player in the market. So what this means is that no one should be able to sell your home in Singapore faster than OHmyhome.
That's interesting. So how are you different from property sites like Property Guru and iProperty?
Well, Property Guru, iProperty, they're advertising platforms. They're classifieds. So their main business model is advertising. They serve freelance agents. We don't serve freelance agents. We're not an advertising platform. We're a platform that allows homeowners to post by themselves and they can meet buyers by themselves. But more importantly, as a company, we have our own team of in-house agents. We have mortgage specialists, legal panel, renovation. So basically a one-stop shop to take care of your entire housing journey. 100% of our offers are on target price and 100% of our closing offers are higher than the last offer made. So we're very focused on transactions. We're very focused on using our technology to help you sell faster.
Now you operate in three markets, Rhonda. You started in Singapore, you went into Malaysia in 2019, and then Philippines last year. But your revenue model differs slightly from market to market. Walk us through the differences.
So in Singapore, that is our first market. It's our core market at the moment. And in Singapore market, in all of our markets, we focus on mass market. And when we refer to mass market, we're talking about the 30 to 70% of the audience. And these are people who are buying or selling for the first or second time, and generally for their own use or for their first two investment products. Now, in Singapore, when you look at 30 to 70%, 80% of the market, you're looking at HDB. So we are the first in Singapore to introduce a fixed rate model. What that means is that based on the pricing of your sale, we charge you a fixed rate and not a commission fee.
So what's only for HDB or also for private residences in Singapore?
So the fixed rate is only for HDB. And then for private residences, it's at 2% of the selling price. And then in Malaysia, it's 3% of the selling price. And then in Philippines, it's 5%.
Okay, wow. Philippines is really high transaction fees.
That's right. So the value of the property is also quite different. It's a lot lower than the first two markets. Right. And the reason we charge differently in different markets, it's also to address the pain points. Now in Singapore, the pain point in especially the HDB market is that agents are overcharging. And then in the private market, they're okay with that as long as you can sell well for them. So our entire model is very focused on making sure that we are able to help homeowners sell fast, sell high.
Okay, now Rhonda, let's zoom in on the Singapore property market. Could you just give us a broad overview of the Singapore market last year and how residential property has performed?
Well, 2020 has definitely been a roller coaster for the Singapore property market. I'll share about the HDB market first, since it is where 82% of Singaporeans live, and then I'll follow on with the private market. So for the HDB segment, the resale volume actually plunged by 41.9% in quarter two 2020. There was a 2-month circuit breaker in April and May when physical viewings weren't allowed. Now, compared to the same period the year before, resale transactions were 45% lower. So that's a very significant drop in the quarter two. But the market saw an impressive turnaround in quarter three. This is right after circuit breaker, When the government actually eased safe distancing restrictions, home buying activities picked up across various market segments. Now, there are some highs in the private residential property market that are worth noting. First of all, is that according to HDB flash estimates, the HDB flat prices actually rose a third consecutive quarter by 2.9% in the fourth quarter last year. And this is the highest quarterly increase in about 10 years. Now, more than 80 HDB flats were sold for over $1 million, and this is higher than the last high in 2018. Now, moving on to the new private home sales, it also plunged to a historic low around the same time during the circuit breaker. And it was actually at a 5-year low in April 2020, with only 277 private home units sold. This is down from 660 homes sold in the month before. So you're looking at a 2/3, almost like a 2/3, decrease in the transactions. Now, in terms of the private market, out of the 277 sold in April, actually 100 units were transacted after the circuit breaker period that began in 7 April. And these transactions were actually identified as carryover sales from previous months when buyers were able to view sales galleries. So what this really means is that most people were not really active or available to transact during the circuit breaker. But Singapore's home market usually rebounds after each economic crisis, and last year was no different. So post-circuit breaker, the market saw an impressive turnaround as private home resale transactions hit more than 9,200 units by November 2020. And this has surpassed the overall private home resale deals of almost 9,000 in the whole of 2019. And we expect the prices actually has also increased by 2.1% in quarter 4. Now, this part is all about sales. Now, moving over to rental, actually rental of private residential properties also increased by 0.7% in quarter 4. And this is compared with a 0.5% decrease in the previous quarter. So that pretty much sums up the year of 2020, where we saw an exuberance in the market right after the circuit breaker.
Rhonda, I need to ask you, and we need to break it down a little bit more. What's fueling and first let's start with the HDB market. So you said there were more than 20 transactions that were above $1 million. I would take, is that correct?
There were 80 transactions over $1 million.
So this is basically your high-priced HDB flats like Pinnacle and Duxton.
That's right,
yeah. Now, what's fueling the demand for those sort of flats? Because essentially, you're looking at private property prices.
Yes, well, I mean, that's really a combination of reasons that the market is quite exuberant across HDB and the private market. So with the private market, on the HDB front that you mentioned, the reality is that the recent launches in highly desirable mature estates last year in places such as Bishan, Toa Payoh, they have been oversubscribed. And what this means is that many people have to turn to resale offerings in their desired areas instead of waiting further. Now, there are other indicators that many consumers don't realize is actually related to the pandemic, because there are actually quite a number of construction delays and delays in construction supplies from abroad. So the result of that is that the homes that were available for sale were no longer available because they were delayed. So if you can't buy that, you have to look for an alternative, which you go to then the remaining supply in the market.
Okay. The other thing that also obviously has fueled demand was financial issues. The fact that it is now, the world is sloshing with cheap money. So there's a lot of liquidity in the market. So people have money to spend. The second thing is also the fact that interest rates are at historical lows.
No doubt, yes.
So moving forward now, I think in January, private home sales hit an 8-year high. And there was a lot of talk that the budget was going to have cooling measures to cool down the property market. What's the thinking right now post-budget?
Well, I mean, definitely we haven't seen the true effects of the pandemic, right? Because we have a very supportive government that's trying to make sure that, employment rate is kept high. and they have implemented lots of supplementary budgets, economic stimulus packages, which has helped homeowners to continue financing the home. But one thing that we shouldn't forget is that unlike past crises where foreclosures and default in mortgage payments were common, it wasn't the case this time. Now, it wasn't the case this time because much of the credit of this stability, though we hate it, is actually due to the fact that high-risk buyers and speculators were largely eliminated by the cooling measures implemented over the years. Now, what happened with that is that over the years, our market was left with cash-rich or stable homeowners who were better positioned to remain resilient through 2020, through the current crisis. Therefore, you don't see so much of a forced sale, half price, sale going on in the high-end market or any parts of the market. So I think that has really helped stabilize the market in time for a crisis, though unexpected. But I guess across the board, Singaporeans are well positioned for it.
Now, one of the things that's also propped up the Singapore market has been foreign buyers. Now, foreign buyers have traditionally come from the likes of Malaysia, Indonesia, and China. What's the state of demand from foreign buyers today, particularly because there is so much new investment in businesses and stuff in Singapore?
Well, those are very good points because we are really looking at first of all, there's quite a number of reasons. First of all, if you look at just the COVID-19 situation, with the positive signs of the rollout of the vaccine in Singapore and how Singapore has well controlled, the situation locally, there is a lot of optimistic economic projections for foreign investors to continue investing into Singapore because it's still an attractive investment option. And when you look at some other markets where there is even a lot of scrutiny from the government, it makes foreign investors think about how can I move my investments out of their existing countries. So you have global innovators such as TikTok, ByteDance, the Chinese tech giant Tencent, so many others are entering Singapore market. So these are bringing not just a lot of buyers into the private market. We've seen so much exuberance and demand in the GCB, which are usually left for the wealthiest of the market.
Yeah, and just to clarify, GCB in a Singapore context is Good Class Bungalows, which are bungalows 15,000 square feet and above in selected areas.
That's right. So prices have really gone up. You're looking at $30 million bungalows, $60 million bungalows, Sing dollars, just being snapped up. Now, with all of these companies coming in, it's not just the purchases done by, the shareholders, the owners, but also a lot of tenants flooding the market. And these tenants are looking at, if I'm going to be in Singapore for a long time, should I be looking at investing into Singapore since it has, been doing very well? The currency has been doing very well over the years. There are many reasons why foreigners would want to place their dollars over here. After all, Singapore is politically stable. It's very business friendly. The corporate tax rate is excellent. So it's been very attractive among modern business owners across the globe.
And it's also a question of, it's a safe haven. All the questions that all the points that you highlighted, safe haven being one of them in terms of ability to park your money. Also, the scarcity factor, I think, plays into the minds of a lot of people because, as you mentioned with the GCBs, there's only 2007 to 2008 of them, and it's very restricted as to who can buy them. So that's, again, a scarcity factor that when you have demand and supply issues, when you have scarcity, you always have long-term capital appreciation.
Definitely, yes. It's as you mentioned very rightly, it's a limited market. So if you can afford it, you will know with quite much certainty that the prices will go up. In fact, for landed properties in Singapore, the prices have been going up for a number of years now. I think it's an extremely good market for the very wealthy segment of our market.
But on the flip side of the equation, Rhonda, Singaporeans love their property and also have been traditionally investing overseas. Where are they buying homes today besides Singapore?
Well, investing in overseas property will always be an enticing option for Singapore investors looking to diversify because the reality is with the the strength of the Singapore currency is actually, it seems like, hey, you're getting quite a good deal, in another market. And also the affordability, right? If you have $1 million in Singapore, there are actually limited opportunities to find a really good property to invest in. And not to mention the squeeze yields that we'll be getting from our tenants.
Yes.
And the amount of money you pay for stamp duties alone, if you are frequent investors, can actually be used purely for a house overseas. So definitely, where this is where OHmyhome comes in as well. So when we launched in the Philippines in September of last year, this is part of our expansion plans in the Southeast Asia region. So when we see Singaporeans having an interest investing abroad, they are actually one of the largest investors abroad. And how can we make this simpler for them? Because the thing is, the strength of the Singapore dollar against regional currency means that investors are able to leverage that to purchase more attractive properties overseas. However, there's also the risk, right? Because when you buy overseas, you may not understand the currency fluctuation, you may not understand the property laws and regulations. All of this have to be taken into account. So we're seeing Singaporeans in the past years investing into Malaysia, UK, Australia. We also see the rise in investment into Vietnam, Philippines, Cambodia. And then now with Indonesia open up, I think we'll be seeing more of investments flowing into Indonesia as well, as they are a lot more affordable. So how we solve these issues, Brian, is really by making it simple and convenient for users to search for properties through our app with verified, unique, and legitimate listings. Now, we make it mandatory for buyers to speak with knowledgeable in-house agents from both the local and foreign market in order to give them the best advice. So you are now sitting in Malaysia. If you were to buy a property in Singapore, we'll have someone in Malaysia and Singapore from OHmyhome's team to speak to you. And likewise, if you were buying or exploring to buy in Philippines, we will have someone in Philippines and Malaysia to speak to you. Whatever makes it more comfortable for you to understand your investment clearly with full transparency. So since we launched into Philippines last year, we have been able to close sales very successfully for Singaporean investors into Philippine properties. And they don't even have to enter Philippines in order to do that. And the buyers have really reflected that they transacted through OHmyhome even when they had direct contact with the developers, because the ease of transaction through OHmyhome is a lot more satisfying and hassle-free for them.
Now, Rhonda, let's look a little bit at the industry itself. Singapore is a good place to invest. However, it's not without its challenges. So the URA has been probing, the Urban Redevelopment Authority has been probing industry players on commissions for property agents. Now, what are the issues plaguing the industry right now in that area?
Well, commissions for property agents have been common practice in the property market for a long time across the region. It's not just a Singapore thing. But that's mainly because the agents outside of OHmyhome are all freelancers. And freelancers meaning they do not have a salary. Their only means of livelihood is to earn commission. Now, what happens with that is sometimes they get overly competitive when the URA is probing into commissions. I think it also stems from the reality that sometimes due to that, competition amongst freelance agents, they might end up having to do things that are outside of the required guidelines. So CA has guidelines that you're not allowed to provide kickbacks or referrals to buyers who are buying a new launch project from you as an agent. But because it is difficult, to secure a buyer, that's why they tend to, fall outside the guidelines and tend to adopt practices like that, which is to do kickbacks, even though it's not allowed. Now, the reality of the market is that if a real estate developer had an alternative, they would certainly choose to pay as little commission as possible, because URA is actually asking, should we be paying so much? Should we be regulating it? But the thing is, we never forget that properties, just like any other products, they have to have a range of commissions, because that will be easier to sell products, that will be harder to sell products, and the agent has to be rewarded for that work, because the amount of work needed to secure a suitable buyer varies as well. So that's why what I feel should be tightened are actually the referrals and kickbacks that the agents are providing outside of CA guidelines. which caused a lot of resentment and bad behavior among freelance agents, and also, more importantly, unfairness to buyers. Now, with all of this, how do we at OHmyhome, view this? First of all, from day one, we operate very differently. So we understand that properties are extremely high value products, and we believe that it should only be attended by professionals that are full-time. So that is why all of our agents are full-time professionals. We do not have a single agent that's freelance. And we don't just have a full-fledged team of full-time agents. We have tech, marketing, relationship managers, and we have a one-stop shop to attend to our customers fully.
So how big is your team, Rhonda?
Across the 3 countries, we're about 90.
Okay.
So we're actually very lean. We're very efficient because our database and our technology that runs our database enables us to sell fast, sell at high prices. And this is for sellers. So it could be for developers, it could be for homeowners. But where it comes to the buyers, all buyers are always best served by OHmyhome because unlike the usual commission-based agents, our agents have salary. They are not incentivized just by commissions. They are incentivized by customer satisfaction. So that means today, Brian, regardless of whether you're buying a $300,000 property or a $3 million property from OHmyhome, our agents will do their best to serve you, no different from most full-time employed professionals in any other fields. So buyers and sellers who are using OHmyhome will not be affected by the amounts of property agent commissions that the company is receiving because we don't incentivize our team in the same manner.
So any final words, Rhonda, words of advice, particularly in buying Singapore property?
Well, certainly like at OHmyhome, we've facilitated over 7,000 transactions and we have outstanding customer reviews. High customer satisfaction of over 4,000 5-star reviews on Facebook. I think we take so much pride in making sure our customers are well served, and therefore for anyone out there, if you're looking to buy, sell or rent in Singapore, I think first and foremost, if you are unfamiliar, it's so important to have the right advisor that it's incentivized in the right way to serve you. So if you're coming to Singapore, if you're looking to investing in Singapore, definitely, there's the whole range of resale options, new launch project options. And we have a lot of data, a very comprehensive home research report to help you make these decisions and make a good choice because it's not cheap to invest here. So it's so important for you to make sure that where you park your dollars, you're making a good decision, for the next few years and into the future as you enjoy capital appreciation, rental gains, and wealth preservation.
Now, Rhonda, thank you very much for taking your time to share your insights.
Oh, this is lovely. You're very welcome, Brian.
Now, we've been speaking to Rhonda Wong, co-founder and chief executive officer of Proptech firm OHmyhome. I'm Brian Fernandez on BizTech's Property Show. Check out www.biztech.asia for business and technology conversations.